There is a room inside you that you have never entered. The door is not locked. It was never locked. You have simply never turned the handle. Fide. Because somewhere along the way you were taught to wait for a feeling before you would dare to walk through it. You were taught to wait for motivation. And motivation, my friend, is a fair weather visitor. Bums. When the sun is shining on your plans, and it vanishes the moment a cloud passes over your ambition. If you have built your life around waiting for it to return, you have built your life on sand. Foreign sand does not hold the weight of a great destiny. Think for a moment about how strange this arrangement really is. You would never hand the keys of your car to a stranger you met once on the street, and yet you have handed the keys of your entire life to a feeling that visits you unpredictably, stays for a moment, and leaves without explanation. You do not control when it arrives. You cannot summon it by wishing harder. And still you have agreed, without ever signing anything, to only move when it shows up. This is the quiet tragedy of most unlived lives. Not a lack of ability, not a lack of dreams, but a permission slip that was never going to be signed by the one thing you kept waiting on. Let me tell you what discipline is, because most men and women have never truly met it. Discipline is not a whip. It is not punishment. Fine. Discipline is the quiet, unglamorous decision to keep moving when the applause has stopped, when no one is watching, when the feeling you were promised never arrives at all. It is the architect that shows up to the construction site every single morning, rain or shine, because the building does not care how the architect feels. The building only cares whether the work gets done. And so it is with your future. Boy, your future does not care whether you feel inspired today. It only cares whether you showed up. Picture two architects standing at the same empty lot. One waits for the perfect weather, the perfect mood, perfect morning where everything inside him feels aligned before he will lift a single tool. The other simply begins, regardless of the sky above him, regardless of the noise in his own head. 10 years pass. One lot still holds nothing but weeds and the memory of good intentions. The other holds a building that people walk past and admire, posture, never knowing that it was built not in moments of inspiration, but in thousands of ordinary mornings where inspiration was nowhere to be found. The difference between these two men was never the weather. It was the decision to build regardless of it. Fine. I have studied men who rose from nothing, and men who were given everything and still fell into nothing, and the difference between them was never talent, never luck, never the size of their bank account at the starting line. The difference was this. The ones who rose had trained themselves to act in the absence of feeling. They did not wait for courage before they spoke. They spoke, and courage arrived as a companion to the action, not as a gift that preceded it. This is a law as fixed as gravity, though few have ever been taught it. Action creates feeling far more reliably than feeling creates action. If you sit and wait to feel ready, you will wait until the grave, because readiness is not a mood. Readiness is a decision dressed up as a mood, and only the doer ever gets to wear it. You can test this law yourself, and you do not need a laboratory to do it. Think of the last time you dreaded a phone call, a difficult conversation, a task you had been avoiding for days. You did not feel calm before you began. You felt calm, if you felt it at all, only after you had already started speaking, already dialed the number, already put pen to paper. The feeling you were waiting for was hiding on the other side of the action you kept postponing. It was never going to meet you at the starting line. It only ever meets you a few steps in, as a reward for having moved without it. Consider the seed buried beneath the soil. It does not wait to feel like growing. It does not consult its emotions before pushing upward through darkness and stone. It obeys a law written into its nature, a law that says, grow or perish. Well, you have that same law written into you, buried perhaps under years of excuses, under the soft, comfortable lie that says tomorrow will feel different. Tomorrow will not feel different unless today you become a different person. And you become a different person not through wishing, but through repetition, through the daily, almost invisible act of choosing discipline over comfort. 100 times, 1,000 times, until it is no longer a choice at all, but a character. Notice something about the seed that we so easily overlook. It does its growing in the dark underground, unseen, long before anything visible breaks the surface. Nobody applauds a seed for its first week of effort. Nobody films it, for nobody praises it. Nobody even knows it is working at all. And yet that invisible, unapplauded labor is the only reason anything ever reaches the light. Your own growth will look the same. Most of it will happen where no one can see it. On the ordinary Tuesday when you did the work anyway. On the quiet evening when you kept a promise to yourself that no one else even knew you had made. Do not despise these invisible seasons. They are not the absence of progress, but they are the entire mechanism of it. There is a deeper layer beneath discipline that almost no one speaks of, and it is this. Your subconscious mind does not know the difference between a truth and a repeated instruction. Whatever you feed it day after day, through your actions more than your words, it will eventually accept as identity. If you repeatedly wait for motivation, you are not merely delaying a task. You are instructing the deepest part of your mind that you are a person who requires permission before you move. And that instruction becomes a prison built from your own hands, its bars invisible, its lock turned quietly from the inside. But the reverse is equally true, and this is where your power lives. Every time you act without waiting, without needing to feel ready, you are rewriting that instruction. You are teaching your own subconscious a new identity, one action at a time, until acting becomes simply who you are, rather than something you must decide anew each morning. This is why the wealthy in mind, long before they are wealthy in circumstance, move differently than those who are waiting for their ship to arrive. Fine. They do not treat action as a reaction to feeling good about money or ready for opportunity. They treat action as their identity, their signature, the thing they do regardless of the weather inside them. Watch closely, and you will notice that such people rarely describe themselves as motivated. They describe themselves as consistent. Motivation is loud and temporary. Consistency is quiet and permanent, and it is consistency, not motivation, that every fortune, every mastery, every transformed life has actually been built from. Purpose, when it is real, behaves the same way. It does not announce itself with a burst of emotion each morning like a trumpet before battle. For real purpose is quieter and far more durable. It is the reason you keep walking even on the days it delivers no feeling at all, and it is precisely on those feelingless days that your purpose is tested and proven, not on the days it feels effortless to believe in yourself. Anyone can feel purposeful when the applause is loud and the results are visible. The true test, the only test that has ever mattered, is whether you still show up on the gray Tuesday, when nothing about the day suggests that your effort is being noticed by anyone at all, including yourself. Here is the part that will sting, and I offer it not to wound you, but to wake you. For every day you postpone action while waiting for motivation, you are quietly voting for the smaller version of your life. You are not standing still. There is no such thing as standing still. Fool, you are either constructing your future or you are constructing the ache of regret that visits old men and women in the quiet hour before sleep, when the noise of the day can no longer drown out the question, what might I have built had I simply begun? That question is merciless. It does not knock gently. It arrives uninvited, usually decades too late to be answered with anything but sorrow. I would rather you face the discomfort of discipline now than the devastation of that question later. I have sat across from people at the far end of their lives, full, and I have never once heard one of them say they regretted the discipline they practiced. Not one, but I have heard, more times than I can count, some version of the same haunting sentence. I always meant to. I always meant to write the book. I always meant to start the business. I always meant to call my father before it was too late. Meaning two is not a plan. It is a placeholder for a life that was never actually lived, dressed up to look like intention, so that it would not have to be recognized as avoidance. Do not let your life become a long collection of things you always meant to do. Now understand this, because it changes everything. Discipline never asks you to feel strong. It only asks you to move while weak. The soldier does not wait until fear disappears before advancing. He advances with fear walking beside him, and in that advance, he becomes something fear can no longer command. This is the secret that separates the ordinary life from the extraordinary one. Not the absence of doubt, not the absence of fatigue, not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act inside all three until they lose their grip, one small victory at a time. Every single master you admire in any field was once a beginner who simply refused to stop moving on the days it would have been easier to stop. That refusal, repeated across years, is the entire secret. There is no other secret hiding behind a locked door somewhere. The door was open the whole time. It was open the moment you decided to act rather than to feel. Fear, when you examine it honestly, is rarely a wall. It is usually a doorway disguised as a wall, and the disguise only holds up for as long as you refuse to touch it. The moment you place your hand on it and push, you discover it was never solid to begin with. It only ever appeared solid from a distance, to a mind that had not yet decided to move. This is true of the difficult conversation, the new business, the blank page, first mile of the run you have been dreading. Approach it and it opens. Stand at a distance and study it forever, and it will remain in your mind, an impossible wall for the rest of your life. False. Let this be the hour you stop negotiating with your own resistance. Stop asking your emotions for permission to become who you were built to be. Your emotions were never granted a vote in this matter. They were only ever meant to be passengers, not drivers. Take the wheel back today. Choose one act of discipline in the next 60 minutes that requires no motivation whatsoever, only decision, and complete it fully. Then choose another tomorrow and another the day after. Split. The compounding of small, unfeeling, deliberate acts become the architecture of a life your future self will thank you for rather than mourn. The sleeping giant inside you was never waiting for inspiration. It was only ever waiting for you to stop asking permission and start walking. Rise now, not because you feel like it. Rise because rising, regardless of feeling, is the only thing that has ever built anything worth having. Understand that this rising does not require a grand ceremony. It does not require you to announce it to the world, to wait for the first of the month, to wait for Monday, to wait for the symbolic clean slate you believe you need before you are allowed to begin. Every clean slate you have ever waited for was an illusion offered by a mind trying to protect you from the discomfort of starting now. Fine. The truth is simpler and far less romantic. You begin in the middle of an ordinary moment, in clothes you did not choose for the occasion, on a day that looks exactly like every other day. Speak, because that is the only kind of day that has ever actually existed. There has never been a special day. There has only ever been this one. Somewhere ahead of you, on a day you cannot yet see, Furion. There is a version of you standing on the far side of everything you are currently postponing, looking back at this exact moment with either gratitude or grief. You get to decide which one. Not with a grand gesture, not with a single dramatic leap, but with the next small, unfeeling, deliberate act you choose in the next 60 seconds. That is the whole of it. That is the entire secret laid bare. Decide now and let the deciding be enough. And when tomorrow comes, feeling still has not arrived. Remember that it was never supposed to arrive first. It was only ever supposed to follow you, quietly, a few steps behind, once you had already proven to it that you were the kind of person who moves regardless. Let it catch up to you along the way. Your job was never to wait for it. Your job was only ever to walk.